regarding anxiety disorders. There are so many disorders. The chief symptom of these disorders revolves around the anxiety. For example, if we talk about generalized anxiety disorder, we talk about phobic disorder, we talk about panic disorder. So these disorders, the chief symptom of such disorders revolves around the anxiety, and also we can include OCD in this disorder. First, we will discuss about the anxiety. The anxiety if we talk about historical perspective about the anxiety disorder, it was only in the late 19th century, in 1895, Sigmund Freud coined the term anxiety neurosis. But does that mean before 1895, the disorder doesn't exist? Or obviously it existed, but it was mainly classified based on the physiological symptoms, because the psychiatrists around the world did not have a universal view about such symptoms, which we will come to know later when we discuss about the generalized anxiety disorder. They usually classified them classified these disorder based on the physiological symptoms. For example, it was known as Da Costa syndrome, cardiac neurosis, neurocirculatory asthenia, also neuroregulatory asthenia. Some also called it as Soliger's heart. So these were some of the terms which were attributed to the anxiety disorder before the anxiety disorder actually, before 1985, before the Sigmund Freud coined the term anxiety neurosis. So it was named differently. Sometimes it was called as soldier's heart, sometimes it was called as cardiac neurosis, Da Costa syndrome, some used to call it as neurocirculatory asthenia, some used to call it as neuroregulatory asthenia. Different names were given to the term anxiety disorder. So if we'll move to first we'll understand what is the word meaning of anxiety. If we just see the word meaning of anxiety, means to choke, throttle, trouble, upset. This is the word meaning of the anxiety. So these are some of the words which, if you see on internet or if you see any dictionary, the word meaning of the anxiety will be to choke, to throttle, troubled, or being upset. These are some of the terms, these are some of the words associated with the anxiety. So basically, if we come before going to the definition of the anxiety, we need to understand what anxiety is basically. Commonly what we do is we correlate this, or we sometimes use interchangeably. Stress and anxiety are used interchangeably as if they were similar terms, but actually they are not similar terms. If we talk about the stress, or more appropriately, if we talk about stressor, because stress is brought about by the stressor. Stressor, as we know, is an external factor. So stressor is an external factor. Anxiety will be the emotional response to the stressor. Stressor is an external factor. For example, we have an exam. As students, we face our exams. So what exam studies is our external factor. The pressure of those studies, because of that pressure, we have constant load on our mind or on our body. We feel burdened because of the exam. Now the exam is the external factor. The burden is our emotional response, or the pressure is our emotional response. That will be anxiety. So stress or stressor is an external factor, and anxiety is the emotional response to that external stressor. So if again we distinguish fear from anxiety. How do we distinguish fear from anxiety? Fear is cognitive appraisal of the situation. Appraisal of any situation. Fear is cognitive appraisal of any situation. Anxiety will be the emotional response to that appraisal. See, for example, if we saw something which is frightening for us, or which we are afraid of. So what we will do when we see that, we perceive that thing, and we know that this thing is harmful for us. Because it is harmful for us, so it creates an response inside us. So the fear is cognitive appraisal of the situation. The fear understanding that is cognition. In order to understand a thing, we need to use our cognitive domain. Then anxiety will be running away from there is an anxiety response. So that will be the anxiety will be now the running away is an emotional response, even though it is behavioral response. But what makes us to run away from there? It is the emotions of the terror, or it is the emotions of the dread, or it is the emotions of the impending doom which make us run from there. So basically, why do we run? Because our cognitive domain tells us the stimulus is fearful. So because of that, anxiety rises, and we make a decision to run away from the fearful stimulus. So this is difference between anxiety, stress, and difference between stress and anxiety. Again, I'll go once more. Stress or stressor is an external factor. The anxiety will be the emotional response to that external factor, or simply the stressor. The fear is the cognitive appraisal of any situation, and anxiety is the anxiety will be the emotional response of that cognitive appraisal. So this is regarding the mainly understanding the concept of the anxiety. Now we will go to the definition of the anxiety. Defined anxiety as apprehension, tension, uneasiness, the source of which is apprehension, tension, uneasiness, from the anticipation of danger, the source of which is unknown or unrecognizable or not recognized. So this is by Black and Anderson. So Black and Anderson defines anxiety as apprehension, tension. What is apprehension? Apprehension is feeling that something bad is going to, always expecting that something bad is going to happen. Tension, we know, uneasiness from the anticipation of the danger, the source of which is greatly unknown. So now, if we see, if we break this definition into this definition, so we can say apprehension is, as I said, feeling that something bad is. The individual who has anxiety, he always has the feeling that something bad is going to happen. Because of that, tension mounts in him, and then obviously whenever there is tension, you will feel uneasy, and from the anticipation of the danger. Why something is going to happen? Because they feel that they are always in a dangerous atmosphere, or always that danger is going to come towards them. The source of this danger is greatly unknown. If we so that is this thing differentiates anxiety and phobia. What we say in phobia is, whether it is social phobia, agoraphobia, that the person is present at some circumstances. We can judge from if it is social phobia, we know the person, if he is in a social setting, he will be afraid, or he will throw a panic attack. But in here, the source is not known. So the person may feel anxious at any time, irrespective of the situation, whether it is causing whether it is capable of causing the anxiety or whether it is incapable of causing the anxiety, or whether the circumstances around him are frightening or whether they are not frightening. So now the question is, how much is too much anxiety? So that is when do we call the anxiety as psychopathological, or when anxiety is regarded as psychopathological? We can say when it arises in the absence of the stress or the stressor, when the person continues to feel anxiety irrespective of the stressor being present. Other thing will be when it is out of proportion to the situation which is creating it. For example, we should be afraid of we should feel some anxiety before writing our exams. If the anxiety is too much, then that anxiety will be called as pathological. Then that anxiety is regarded as pathological. Or any circumstances which usually will create some form of the anxiety in the individual, that some form will be usually adaptable for other individuals, and some person he cannot adapt to that similar. So when he is exposed to the similar situation, he feels helpless or he shows a maladaptive behavior. That is when it is shown out of proportion to the situation which is creating it. And third important factor is it creates because of it being out of proportion to the situation. It results in the social and occupational impairment, or it creates an social and occupational impairment or social and occupational dysfunction. So we have three criteria for anxiety to be regarded as pathological: when it arises in the absence of the stressor. Secondly is when it is out of proportion to the situation which is creating it. Third is when it interferes or when it creates a social or occupational impairment in an individual. So this was regarding the definition of the anxiety. Now we have Pablo in 1963. He classified anxiety into four major categories. He said anxiety could be either mild, moderate, severe, panic, anxiety. So this was Pablo's classification of the anxiety: mild, moderate, severe and panic anxiety. Coming to the first, which is mild anxiety. What is mild anxiety? Mild anxiety is usually we experience this level of anxiety in our day-to-day life, in the challenges of our day-to-day life. What Pablo said, mild anxiety is felt by every individual in their day-to-day life, and also it is important for an individual to have mild anxiety. Why? Because it prepares us for any challenge. It motivates us. It prepares an individual, provides motivation to an individual. There is increases perceptual field, thereby enhances learning and helps an individual to perform at his optimum best. What Pablo said, that in mild anxiety, the individual has mild anxiety, that it prepares an individual for any challenge. It motivates an individual to perform any activity. It also increases our perceptual field, or it creates a heightened perception of the environment. Next is when there is heightened perception of the environment, naturally learning will be enhanced. All these factors help us to perform at our optimum best. All these will help us to perform at our optimum best. Mitchell Johnson, a singer, who gave a description about his performance anxiety, although it was mild only. So he said, this mild anxiety feels like when I go on the stage, I am ready to start the song. What happens is my head start to my palms start to sweat, my lips start to stuck with my teeth, and then I feel this shivering, and I feel shivering and sweating, and I have pounding heart. I can listen. Pounding heart is when you can listen to your own heart rate, or when your heart is producing an extra. When your heart starts to produce abnormally high pitched sounds. So my heart starts to pound, and I do not know. And I do not know the verses which I am singing of the song are how they are going. But he called this an brilliant combination, or he called this as being essential combination. He said that so this Mitchell Johnson's description of the mild anxiety, what it helps us, for example, if we correlate this to our daily life. When we have exams, we are going to face exams. Just before the exams, half an hour or 10 minutes before the exams, we are given answer sheets. After we write everything, or before even also we start to write on the exams, what we start to do is our throat starts to dry up. And because we are only concentrating on our exams, and this exam was a stressor, and it is now bringing about some mild anxiety. It is now creating some anxiety in us, anxiety response. So what usually happens to us is we start to shiver a little bit. We start to remembering everything in our mind starts to flash back. Whatever we have studied, that all is flashed back during this time. And also, other than that, we shiver, and also we also feel sweat in our sweaty palms. So that Peplow or Mitchell Johnson, they regarded this as being mild anxiety, moderate anxiety. Same moderate anxiety, same example we will give. When we are in the exam, when our preparation is good, everything is good, we will feel anxious. After we have seen the paper, everything starts to go away. But for example, we have prepared well, but we do not remember. We have prepared well, but the question which has come in the exam, we have not studied that. So what will happen to us? Same situation. What will happen? We will start. Before, our perceptual field has increased. We had heightened awareness of the environment. Now what happens? Our awareness regarding whatever we have learned decreases. We start to forget even whatever we remembered. Also, we start to forget those things also, just because we do not. We see a question which we have not studied. So our this awareness of the our awareness regarding our own study material will start to decrease a little bit if we have just one question missing from if we have not studied one question from our exam. So what this will do? This will create more tension in us, more anxiety, more uneasiness in us, more apprehension in us regarding whether we will pass our exam or whether we will not pass our exam. Coming back on here, we'll give the Peplow's description first. Moderate anxiety, what Peplow said. In mild anxiety, he said, when there is mild anxiety, there is heightened awareness of the stimulus. Once the anxiety increases a little bit, once uneasiness, what anxiety means is uneasiness, apprehension, tension. Once it increases, there is decreased perceptual field. When there is decreased perceptual field, naturally there is decreased attention and concentration. When there is decreased attention and concentration, there is problems in performing goal-directed activity. So the person might need assistance with problem solving. So what will happen in moderate anxiety is there will be decreased perceptual field. Why decreased perceptual field? Because the level of apprehension, level of uneasiness, level of tension has risen. So there will be decreased attention and concentration. Once there is decreased attention and concentration, there will be problems in the perceptual field. There will be problems in the problem solving, or there will be problems in performing goal directed activities. Thereby individual will require some assistance to solve the problem. Same example if we give, if somebody gives us a clue about this topic in our exam, since we have studied rest everything we have studied, if he gives just some clue in our exam, so we will start to remember everything. Will come back to us. That is, we will require assistance in the problem solving. Okay, so this was regarding moderate anxiety. After moderate, we will go to severe anxiety. Severe anxiety, same example we will take. Now in there we were not remembering something which has come, just one question or some part of the question we were not remembering. In severe anxiety and also in moderate anxiety, because of increase in the tension, because of increase in apprehension, because of increase in uneasiness, there will be some physical symptoms. Physical symptoms which are associated with anxiety is usually muscle tension. There is also restlessness, and the person feels to be on the edge. Being on the edge means being ready for any imaginable or any perceived danger. So person is always ready for any imaginable or perceived danger. So those things will be there. Physical symptoms associated with anxiety they are associated usually with moderate anxiety, then severe anxiety, and then panic anxiety also. They are restlessness, they are muscle tension is there, and person always feels on the edge. So what happens in severe anxiety is like we only know one question from our paper. So what will happen then? 5 questions are mandatory for us to write in the exam, but we only know one question. When we see other 4 questions, we will also start to forget that one question. So that means the perceptual field in case of this severe anxiety will be severely diminished. Perceptual field is decreased perceptual field. So that means when we say severely, the individual can only concentrate on one aspect of the environment, or he might not be able to concentrate on just one aspect of the environment also. Why? Because the attention span, attention and concentration are severely impaired. What is attention and concentration? Attention is our ability to focus on one topic rather than other. Okay? Attention is our ability to focus on one topic in hand. Okay, for example, we have 30 things in our environment. When we are able to focus on one object in that environment, that will be our attention for that object. What is concentration now? Concentration is our ability to sustain that focus. We have focused on one, we have paid our attention, or we have focused on one object. When we are able to sustain that attention for a prolonged period of time, that becomes concentration. So there will be severely impairment in the attention and concentration also. So there will be decreased perceptual field, there will be decrease in the attention and concentration. Now will the person will be able to perform any goal directed activity? No, obviously no, because he is not able to pay his attention, because he has no perception of the environment, because he has diminished perceptual field. So severe anxiety will be cannot perform even simplest of the activities. In severe anxiety, a person cannot perform the simplest of the activities. Like we said, simplest activity for a person who was, whatever he has remembered, he could write that. Usually he will be able to write that in his paper. But because of he doesn't know much of the paper is unknown to him, so what is known to him is also forgotten. Okay, so he cannot perform even the simplest activities. So this person will be chronically dependent on others to perform even simplest activities of the daily life. That means social and occupational impairment is severe in severe anxiety. Okay, so now we go to last one, which is panic anxiety. Anxiety is the severe form of the anxiety, wherein an individual is not just he feels apprehension, tension, or uneasiness. Here, other than feeling tension, apprehension, and uneasiness, the person is also terrorized. He also feels terrorized. Other than that, so what will happen to the perceptual field? The perceptual field will be severely diminished. He cannot concentrate even on one minute detail of the environment. And other than that, what will happen is, because he is terrorized, what happens is misinterpretations are misinterpretation, which is expressed by illusions, are common, and there might also be evidence of the hallucinations as well in case of the panic anxiety disorder. So panic anxiety disorder is perceptual field is very severely compromised. Other than how much is compromised, that person cannot even focus on even one single detail of the environment, and that misinterpretations of such individuals are common, and there is also hallucinations. Because of these illusions and hallucinations, the person might choose to remain in isolation. So this was regarding the Pavlov's classification of the anxiety. Now if we discuss recovery, now what is the question is, sometimes the question comes that and explain about generalized anxiety disorder. When we understand the definition of the anxiety, we can now write about generalized anxiety disorder. But generalized anxiety disorder will be GAD, we call it as generalized anxiety disorder. It will be manifested as recurrent. Anxiety disorder will be characterized by recurrent or persistent unrealistic and excessive anxiety, which was seen, which is present for more days than not for a period of 6 months. Okay, the generalized anxiety disorder is characterized by persistent, unrealistic, and excessive anxiety, which is present for more days than not for a period of 6 months. And the symptoms of this anxiety cannot be attributed to any other illness, or cannot be attributed to any other illness. That is, caffeine intake, we know, increased caffeine increases the chances of anxiety, increases the anxiety in us. Then also hyperthyroidism has also hyperthyroidism has also been associated with the restlessness and behavioral manifestations which are similar to that of the anxiety. So we shall exclude the presence of either excessive caffeine intake or hyperthyroidism should be excluded, and it shall create, and the symptoms are enough to create a social and occupational impairment. So I'll go once more. There should be persistent. It is characterized by persistent, unrealistic and excessive anxiety which is present for more days than not for a period of 6 months, and the symptoms cannot be attributed to any other illness. For example, increased caffeine intake or to hyperparathyroidism or any other such conditions. For example, alcohol intake can also be, you can also take alcohol intake as an example, and we can other than that, it should also cause significant social and functional impairment. Then only anxiety will be regarded as pathological, and then only we call it as generalized anxiety disorder. And the physical symptoms, like there is also association of the physical symptoms with the generalized anxiety disorder. Those will be restlessness, muscle tension, and there will be feeling on edge. Like I said, feeling on edge means to being ready for any imagined or perceived danger. So physical symptoms will be also associated with generalized anxiety. Restlessness, muscle tension and feeling on edge or being on edge are some of the physical symptoms which are associated with the generalized anxiety disorder. If we know what is anxiety and what are the features of the anxiety, what is the classification of the anxiety, we shall not have problems in writing the generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, so next we will come to panic anxiety disorder, which we explained already in the classification. It is also a separate disorder kept under DSM-5 and ICD. So we shall discuss that also. Panic anxiety disorder. First of all, to understand panic anxiety disorder, we need to understand what the panic is. Panic anxiety disorder. So first we need to understand what is panic. Panic is sudden overwhelming feeling of terror and impending doom. Impending doom is similar to apprehension, fearing that something bad is going to happen. What is sudden overwhelming feeling? Suddenly the person will feel that something really bad is going to happen to him. Because of that, there will be development of the anxiety. And then there will be some physical manifestations also associated with it, which we will learn in the general panic anxiety disorder. So what is panic anxiety disorder now? Like there we saw recurrent. Here also panic anxiety disorder is characterized by recurrent panic attacks, the onset of which is unpredictable, manifested by intense apprehension, fear, terror, associated with impending doom and accompanied by physical symptoms. What are the physical symptoms associated with the panic disorder or panic anxiety disorder? So what is panic disorder or panic anxiety disorder? Is recurrent panic attacks, the onset of which is unpredictable. Like I said, the only difference between panic and phobia is, in phobia we know predictable onset. We know when social phobia, when he is exposed to the social circumstances, the person will throw a phobic attack. But in case of the panic anxiety disorder, we do not know what creates a panic disorder, when person will be having a panic anxiety attack or when he will not be having a panic attack. So that is which is unpredictable. So how it is manifested, how the person, what are the symptoms person shows? It is exhibited by intense apprehension, fear, terror, often associated with the impending doom. Why? How these feelings of fear and terror, they are associated with the impending doom. Like I said, impending doom is fearing that something worst is going to happen all the time, and these symptoms then they are accompanied by the physical signs, some of the physical symptoms. What are those physical symptoms? Physical symptoms associated with panic attacks are palpitations, shortness of breath, feeling of choking, tightness of chest, and then there is also dying, pounding hard, sweating, trembling, shivering are some of the physical symptoms which are associated with the panic anxiety disorder. So likewise in case of the anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, the person shall feel these symptoms for a period of 6 months, and then they should be present for more days than not for a period of 6. Then also that the criteria for that is they occur out of proportion to the situation, and they also create and social and occupational impairment. Okay, so this is basically regarding anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and panic disorder. Now we will come to about the incidence of the panic and anxiety disorder. The incidence in general population of anxiety disorder is 1 to 2%. For panic disorder, similarly 1% for the panic disorder in general population throughout the world. But in Kashmir, a study which was carried out by MSF is Medicines Sans Frontieres, are popularly known as Doctors Without Borders. In collaboration with Kashmir University's Department of Psychology and also IMANS, Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, they conducted a study which was based on 3,266 households. They conducted a study. In this, that study revealed that the result of that study found that the incidence of anxiety in Kashmir is 26%. Comparing with 1 to 2% of the whole world. 26% in Kashmir, 16% if we talk about the district, 16% in Srinagar, and highest was 36% in Badgaon. So a study was conducted by Doctors Without Borders and Medicines Sans Frontieres in collaboration with Kashmir University's Department of Psychology and National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience. The results of the study revealed that 26% of the Kashmir's population is showing probable signs of the anxiety, where that rate was 16% at Srinagar and 36% in Badgaon. This is regarding the Kashmir's perspective of the anxiety. Then if we talk about the male-female ratio, women are more prone to anxiety than that of the man. If we talk about the age of onset, it is usually more prone in early adolescence or late adolescence, although could also be seen after the 21 years. The onset of anxiety disorder is not uncommon after age of 20. So now we will go to the predisposing factors. Predisposing factors. First is psychodynamic theory. A psychodynamic view for the anxiety. How does psychodynamic theory, as we know, is based on the Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory. What Sigmund Freud said, that the anxiety develops because of the inability of ego to intervene when conflict occurs between it and superego. What Freud said is, it is the inability of the ego to intervene when there is a conflict between id and superego. As we know, Freud gave his psychoanalytical theory, in that he said three hypothetical structures of the brain: id, ego and superego. Id was our reality principle, it was our pleasure principle, and then ego is our reality principle, and superego is our moral principle, which we have all learned in our previous. We have also learned about cathecus, the energy which is expended in the id is to perform idistic behavior is called as cathecus, and the energy which is expended by the ego and superego to stop the idistic behavior is called as anti-cathecus. Here what is important for us is that ego is also a mediator between id and the superego. Since id says to us, please, for example, if we take an example, I need to eat. So what I will do is, I will ask my mom, please give I will not say please, because my id doesn't say please. My id will simply, it wants gratification. So my id says, mom, give me the food. But what my ego is the reality principle. So what it tells is, if mom is busy, I can see that mom is busy and I will wait for it. If my ego has developed, so my reality of the situation is that the mom is not available. If I have to take food now, I shall either take it myself, or I should wait for the mom to finish work. Or now my superego will tell me, my id wanted me to scold my mom when she didn't give me the food. My superego tells me, no, it is absolutely wrong to behave rudely with your mom. So this was basically the function of id and superego. Id also is a mediator. Superego to some extent is also a mediator of the idistic behavior. So id is the moral principle so if we talk about the presence of ego, id will be present at birth. Ego develops by the age of 4 to 6 months, and similarly superego develops by 3 to 6 years. So when we understand the morality, when we understand culturally what is wrong and culturally what is right. So what ego has to do is, ego has, like we have learned in ego defense mechanisms, we have intellectualization, we have denial, we have rationalization, we have repression, we have sublimation, we have other ego defense mechanisms. If somebody's ego is weak, so it cannot, for example, now my id tells me, similar example I will give, my id tells me that I want the food. My superego tells me, no, you cannot scold the mom. Now what is ego has to do? Ego has to intervene in between. Ego has to bring the reality of the situation. Ego has to say, no, you have to wait until your mom is free. Or if you want food now, you have to eat it. If ego cannot do that for me, what will happen is I will start to grow anxious. For example, I might feel that, no, my mother doesn't love me, she loves my brother more. So that will result in the development of the anxiety. Or I might say, no, nobody is caring about me, everyone is caring about themselves, no, I'm here alone. Or whatever I might, or different troubled thoughts will come to my mind. Those troubled thoughts will generate anxiety inside me. So similarly, those persons who have weak ego boundaries their ego will not be able to intervene when the conflict occurs between the other two components. This was Sigmund Freud's view about development of the